I think that was a big core foundation of why associations. One of the actually desirable areas for homeowners is that fact that there are rules, standards that you are to upkeep your home by. It is worthy. If this is something that you're interested in, of making sure that you have a quality of upkeep that you have to your home and standards, that your neighbor is going to as well uphold those standards as well. And so there's a common purpose and understanding, where I do not live in an association, and so there's no authority. You know, you're leaning on the township or city, but you don't get the same results. So a homeowners association or condos, it is their duty to enforce those restrictions as maybe unpleasant. I mean, people, I would hope, would be allowed to still have a little bit unique flair, but overall that's why you become a member of an association, because of the curb appeal.
Right.
Those values that you speak of. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it can be restrictive. You can get people upset because there can be repercussions. There can be fines.
Right.
You're not complying. Mm-hmm. with the restrictions of that association.
So it encourages pride of ownership, which you would hope that would be there anyway, because you're making this large purchase, and for some people it's the largest purchase that they'll ever make. So you would hope that there's already that pride of ownership there, because if you keep a loan for over 30 years, if you look at whatever you buy it for today, typically 2.5 times whatever that original purchase price is what you pay over 30 years because of all the interest and interest that you pay. So it does encourage that, you know. So there's some pluses in that, but you probably want to, if you're looking to, like she mentioned, move into an area that has an HOA, then you might want to have your realtor to seek out those bylaws ahead of time. So if it says you can't have a fence, or if it says you can't have but 1.5 dogs,
yes,
and you can't have more than 2 cats, I've seen on the bylaws that you cannot own a firearm. Interesting. So all those different things that affect people, you can't put an iron door up, and I mean, just those different things, and certain colors you can't do, or you must have it done by a contractor, you must get it approved prior to. So just know those things, and if you feel like you don't want to be in an area where you have to get approval and certain things are just not allowed, then that may not be the neighborhood for you. But if you like the neighborhood because you're drawn there based upon the looks, then no, that's the reason why it looks like that, because the bylaws are being enforced. So.
You're 100% correct, Edna. I mean, all those points that you bring to the table is, if it's desirable, but understanding that's part of association living. Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things I think most buyers don't think about either is when you do decide you want to make an offer on a property and or a seller, when you're selling your property. Some people forget to notify the management company, because you do usually have to contact them prior to closing so that you can find out, one, if the dues are paid, and if they're current, if there's anything in arrears, and what that process looks like to get that information at closing, because you don't want to, the day before closing, all of a sudden the title company is saying, hey, there's an HOA here, but we don't have, a status letter, which means what's the status of that account and what are the dues and all that information. And with most management companies, you're not going to get that the same day. Some management companies, I know this personal by experience because it happened last year, it took months.
Oh my.
When I'm serious, it took months, and it was absolutely ridiculous. If I say 5 months, I'm not kidding.
There's no reason for that.
It took months, to the point that we had to close without it and have money in escrow and just wait. And the only thing we could go based upon was the seller's last check stub that shows what she paid. But we had to leave money in escrow because it was self-managed, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
So the HOA, I don't know who was in charge, but they didn't get back. And then you do have some management companies, they send you through a loop of press this button and press this button and leave a message, and then you're waiting for someone to get back to you with a status letter. That could take some time. So I'm going to turn over to Kim and let her explain how that process works, but I can tell you this. The process is a whole lot easier because you can get a hold of somebody at Casey Properties, where I've had experience with a lot of management companies, and it's been horrendous.
Sorry to hear that. And it really should not be. Mm-hmm. There are tools out there that Casey does utilize, and other local management companies where it is online, to where you can order those. It's very seamless. I have seen where, they've been ordered late, but the turnaround time should be right about 72 hours, business hours. So plan in advance, as Edna stated, who's the professional realtor here, but it should be quite simple, and it is something that is required to close. So planning in advance, I would recommend to any new buyer that you are indeed getting your governing documents in advance and reviewing those, and then having confidence that your realtor is looking to make sure that account is clear prior to the closing date, that there are no outstanding funds or balances or assessments. The term additional assessments and special assessments, those are not your normal monthly or quarterly assessments. Those are above and beyond, as Edna was talking about earlier, where if there's a road assessment, that would probably be a special assessment. But if there was a shortage in operating, then they had planned for budgeting for roofs. Well, the price of roofs have gone up significantly, and in that operating, they would do an additional assessment. It's above and beyond your normal costs. And you want to make sure there's no projected ones out there when you're closing, because you're calculating your payments. I'm just going to pretend at $100 of your dues assessment per month, let's say, but the board could be discussing a potential additional assessment that could be an additional $50 per month. That management company should know this. So by reaching out to them, as Edna was saying, in advance, making sure that account is settled and that you're looking forward of seeing if there's going to be any assessments. That's most important in looking for your home.
Yes, I didn't think about the additional assessments, and that's actually correct, because I know we're looking to do some drain cleaning, like I mentioned, storm drain cleaning, and we've actually budgeted about $40,000 a year, and that's every year until we get them all done. Fortunately, we've budgeted the funds ahead of time, so we don't have to have an assessment. But if we had not, then that would have been $40,000 divided upon the amount of homes over how many every years that you now have in addition. And there is a difference. Like with some HOAs, mine we pay annual because we only have entrances and islands that need to be covered. Whereas with true condo associations, they pay monthly. So it's a different thing because they have, like you said, the exterior and the roof, and then sometimes the roads. All that has to be accounted for. And so one thing that I think is a problem that I've noticed in our sub is that when people move in, and because at closing you have to have paid current for your HOA, and then you're paid through the next renewal. So let's say ours is due in January. So if you're closing in January, typically it's going to be paid until the following year. Yes. So that following year comes and they think that, oh, it's in my mortgage. And then they don't pay, and then they get a late notice, and they're going, wait a minute, why do I have a late notice? Because I don't think they remember, or it wasn't explained that it's paid at closing, but it's your responsibility here forward. And the same sometimes, actually, I just had someone close in the summer, a young man, and it was a true condo, but that's not part of his mortgage. He does have to pay that individually himself each month. Yes. And so we had to explain that, and it was pretty confusing for him because the average person thinks that, well, wait a minute, I'm paying monthly dues. Isn't that included in the mortgage?
And no, it is not. I mean, that is a common misperception, or I think that it is something to be noted and is an excellent topic because You don't want to be caught not understanding that process. Associations have delinquency practices, and you could miss 2 payments and then be at the attorney's, and that can get very costly for folks. So trying to ask those questions up front and make sure this is wonderful, having this clear understanding, I think is of the utmost importance. You don't want to be caught not.
Because the issue that I run into as a realtor is that you get a client, and so their mortgage company tells them you can afford, let's say, a $200,000 house, and then they go, okay, great, and this is what your payment will look like, and then they decide, you know what, I don't want to be bothered with grass and all that. I want to go to a condo. What they don't realize is now you have to subtract. You can no longer you can't go buy a $200,000 condo because there's a monthly association fee. So your mortgage company tells you, well, you can buy $200,000, your taxes here, invest, and then your monthly payment, let's say no more than $1,500. So you go and you find a condo that's $200,000, and you're thinking, cool, it's $1,500. But the association dues a monthly is $300. And so you go to your loan officer and say, I found it, I put an offer, I want it. You can't, because now you're at $1,800 a month. And I try to explain this to my clients, okay, you can get more house in less condo. So it depends on what's more important to you. I mean, we go either way, but keep that in mind. So you're $1,500 plus $300. So if you're going for a $200,000 condo, technically you're probably looking more like 17, let's just say, 170,000, I should say, because now you're looking at a payment of, let's say, $1,200. You add your $300, now you're at your 15. So that's kind of how that math works. I mean, I'm not calculating it exactly, but so keep that in mind, that monthly amount has to be added on top of your mortgage, which covers your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance. That's all rolled in there. And then keep in mind, come the following year, when your home is uncapped, which means your taxes now are taxed on the current value that you purchased it, not at the value where your previous owner bought it. So you got an increase in that, and then taxes go up about 5% roughly anyway every year, and then you got insurance rates, and they're not going down, especially not right now. With the cost of materials, cost of construction is up. That means the cost of homeowners insurance goes up because it's going to cost them now more to repair that home or to replace it. So that's one of the big things that I do see is that they forget. Great idea, but that additional it's roughly about $300 average.
For yes, I mean it depends on the amenities. That is a big factor in the association. If there's a pool, there's a clubhouse, workout facilities, if there's a gate, large grand entrances can add to those maintenance fees, association dues.